Hi, hello, and welcome in to the Ball Don't Lie podcast, another training camp edition of this podcast. Thank you so much for being here. It was a busy weekend. It was an eventful weekend. The Bengals didn't practice on Saturday, but they did practice on Sunday. But the biggest news actually happened after practice Friday going into the weekend. It was a classic Friday news dump, although I don't know if it was designed to be a Friday news dump. Either way, the Bengals and Shemar Stewart agreed on a contract. Finally, 90 plus days after Shemar was drafted by the Bengals with the 17th overall pick, he signed his deal over the weekend and made his first official appearance as a professional at Bengals practice on Sunday. More on that in a moment. Let's rewind to how we got here. The default language was the big sticking point between the Bengals and Shemar Stewart. Well, the Bengals got what they wanted. They got that default language put into Stewart's contract, but they had to compromise. They compromised by moving up $500,000 or a little bit more than that into Shemar's signing bonus, which takes place right now. Okay, his payment that he gets right now for signing the contract. Now, typically, how this works with these deals is you get your signing bonus when you sign, 6 months after that, and then another 6 months after that. So you get the whole thing within a year. So Shemar and his camp were able to get the Bengals to move up an extra $500,000 or so to the signing bonus in this immediate payment as opposed to the one that comes in December. Now, you might be thinking, and this is what I'm thinking, we really did all this over $500,000? Like, that's ultimately what it came down to. Was it worth it for either side? Was it worth it for the Bengals? Was it worth it for Shemar Stewart? And here we are, Shemar behind the eight ball a little bit in terms of catching up with the rest of his teammates. Now, the good thing is he didn't miss a week's worth of practices. He missed a handful of them, so it's not going to kill him and maybe not going to totally stunt his growth as a professional, but you are starting behind the eight ball. You didn't do anything during the mandatory minicamp or rookie minicamp. He is a little bit behind, and that was and is understood by the Bengals organization. Fast forward to Sunday, Jerry Montgomery, the Bengals' new defensive line coach, he had Shemar Stewart attached to his hip. He was giving him all sorts of instruction, explaining this, explaining that, do this, do that. Everything he could possibly get Shemar into, he would get him into. Stewart took reps with the second team. He took a couple of reps with the first team. And it seemed like they threw a lot of different stuff at him. There was a few times where they had a blitz with the outside linebacker, second-round pick Demetrius Knight, and Shemar Stewart was technically on the inside there. They moved him around. They saw him on special teams a little bit, including, I think, field goal block or punt block, something along those lines. So Shemar didn't waste any time. They didn't really ease him in that much. Now, he didn't take every single rep of every single drill and all that, but he got his legs under him. He got his first practice underway, and that's good news for the Bengals. Hopefully, he's a fast learner. Hopefully, physically, there's not much of a challenge for him to get up to shape. I mean, just looking at the guy in a uniform, it's impressive. An impressive physical specimen. Tree trunks for legs, incredible strength. Can he put that all together and develop a pass rush package? That's the big thing with Shemar. He didn't produce very much in college. Can Jerry Montgomery help him refine his skills to come up with a package of pass rush moves that are effective against NFL caliber offensive linemen? And can he learn how to formulate a pass rush plan and how he can get to the quarterback, determine the situation, the type of player he's playing against, the scheme, all sorts of stuff that Shemar's going to have to learn really, really quickly if he wants to be a productive part of this Bengals defense. So the good news is that's done. It's dusted. It's over with. Now, there's still reports that the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson are continuing to negotiate. I don't have very high hopes on that. I don't think that's going to get done anytime soon. Let's check in on some injuries from Bengals camp. Last week, Lucas Patrick got a little bit banged up. So far, we know of 3 for sure injuries. Lucas Patrick, who hurt his right lower leg at the end of last week's practice. Zach Taylor said he's going to be out for a few days dealing with that leg injury. He was their acquisition for the guard spot over the offseason from Green Bay and New Orleans. He went down. He's only going to be out a couple more days. At least that's the way Zach made it sound. He had a sleeve on his right calf today. He was at practice, did not participate. But Lucas Patrick with a lower right leg injury. What else do we have? Marco Wilson, cornerback for the Bengals, who they picked up late last year, he's dealing with an undisclosed injury. Looks like he might be out for a few more days, and that's not a position that can afford, especially the bottom of that room, the back of that room, can't afford many injuries. So hopefully Marco Wilson, who seemed to be really excited about being a Bengal, hopefully he's able to recover quickly. We also know that Matt Lee, who is a second-year player and backup center/guard, hopefully /guard, has been dealing with something, and he hasn't been practicing as much, or they're just kind of easing him into it. I'm not sure exactly Matt Lee's status, but he hasn't been getting as many reps, and he's just a little bit dinged up was the word that was used last week. Those are the only 3 injuries so far through training camp. Circle back on a couple of guys, young guys, maybe some unknown guys. First and foremost, Isaiah Williams. Remember him from the last episode? Isaiah Williams had a couple of nice catches over the weekend, including a diving catch from Joe Burrow. I think it's notable when Isaiah Williams catches passes from Joe Burrow as a part of that wide receiver rotation. And another guy, Taj Brooks, which was one of their final draft picks, running back out of Texas Tech, had a very successful college career. I think it's comparable, like his style of play and who he is as a player, to Samaje Perine, the Bengals' backup running back. Haven't heard much from Taj Brooks. I was hoping maybe we'd see some more flashes from him, and maybe that will come when the shoulder pads and the full padded practices come, which is going to be later this week. I think shoulder pads might be today, might be the first day of shoulder pads today. I'm not entirely sure. But Taj Brooks did fumble in practice over the weekend, which was not great. You never want to do that, but something to keep an eye out on. That fumble was forced. Oh, man. I can't remember who forced it. It might have been one of the rookie linebackers. Can't remember. But Taj Brooks did fumble. Something to keep an eye on. The end of that running back room, the effect they might have on special teams and so on is important. Speaking of special teams, talked a little bit about Evan McPherson last week. He met with the media on Friday and talked for a while because he was perfect in all of his kicks again. And they were asking him, what kind of change? Where are you at right now with everything? And Evan admitted that after his first couple years in the league, he tried to change part of what got him to the NFL. He wanted more distance, and he wanted to kick a straighter ball instead of a ball that kind of has a draw to it, as we've seen Evan kick many times his first couple years in the league. And while he did gain some power, and while he was pretty good the first year he decided to do that, he became really inconsistent with that. So Evan's kind of gone back to his form, or his technique, I guess is the best way to say it, that got him to the National Football League, and he's been really successful so far in camp. Evan also said that he kind of stumbled and had an ankle injury that he rolled over earlier this year while he was training in the offseason. It was just that plant foot type of thing, so keep an eye on that. Doesn't seem to be a big deal. He says he's 100% good to go. He's been great through the first couple of days of camp that he's actually been kicking. So noteworthy there, because Evan McPherson got back to that original technique. Instead of trying to increase the distance, he's trying to go back to increasing consistency. And I think that would be a big step forward for this special teams unit if he's able to. Go back to Sunday's practice, which was yesterday. The Bengals in the red zone offensively, not a great day. Joe Burrow was 0 in the red zone, according to the reporters that were there, and they've struggled a little bit at times in these red zone drills throughout training camp. There hadn't been a ton of them, hadn't been a ton of reps, but that's been a spot where the Bengals defense has actually shown some improvement and some ability to stick with those guys in coverage, which is not abnormal. It's harder to score when you get into the red zone just because there's limited space. You use the sideline as your friend, and so on. There's been some chippiness going on. Jordan Battle, safety from Alabama, got in the grill of Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki told him to shut his mouth. That was good. That was some red zone stuff happening. But overall, not a great day for the Bengals offense. So good to see the defense respond after the offense has mostly been winning the practices. And I think you could probably say the offense won the practice on Sunday as well, except for those red zone portions. And part of the reason why the offense has been winning the practices is because it doesn't seem like it's been a great start to training camp for DJ Turner. Now, I always joke, sort of joke, I don't know if I'm really joking, that it's hard for Michigan players who played under Jim Harbaugh to play in the National Football League because they don't know what's coming. And as we know, Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines cheated repeatedly over and over and over again, and eventually that national championship will be vacated. You saw it with J.J. McCarthy, Vikings camp over the weekend, threw 5 interceptions. You've seen it with a lot of those Michigan guys. They get to the NFL and all of a sudden they don't know how to play football anymore. It's a little bit harder when you don't know what's coming. This is not a shot at DJ Turner. I'm only half joking. DJ Turner has not been great throughout camp so far. He's been picked on a couple of times. His dude's got elite speed. He's got good length. He's got the traits that you want in a cornerback, but it doesn't seem to be all together. He's been very inconsistent in his young NFL career. And there were signs last year where I felt like, okay, maybe this guy's starting to turn a corner, but it just hasn't been consistent enough. And so hopefully he finds some consistency between now and the end of training camp so that he can be a reliable part of that Bengals defense. I know it's also probably difficult for these corners because Al Golden's asking a lot of them. He's moving around in a lot of different spots. Some days you're in the slot, some days you're outside, some days you're right, some days you're left. There's a lot. Sometimes you're blitzing. So it's not easy for a corner by any stretch of the imagination, but it seems like DJ Turner at times has struggled through the early part of camp. We also did have, speaking of defense, our first interception of training camp. That happened on Sunday. Tyson Anderson picked off Jake Browning. A batted ball was kind of thrown into a crowd. Roll out, broken down play. Browning tried to force it in there. Ball got tipped, I believe, by Dejon Anthony, the second-year safety out of Ole Miss. Tyson Anderson came down with it, and apparently Tyson Anderson has played pretty well at safety. That safety room has been a concerning part of the Bengals roster. The depth of that room, the ability of that room to produce if somebody were to go down. Tyson's a great special teamer, Pro Bowl caliber special teamer for the Bengals, but it seems to be he's taking a little bit of a step forward as a safety this year, and maybe will make the Bengals a little bit more comfortable if Geno Stone or someone else has to miss time and he has to go into the game. So that's good news there on Tyson Anderson. Bengals back at it in practice again today, and a full week of practice for them except for Tuesday. I believe they're off tomorrow, so not a full practice. I'm sure they have meetings and walkthroughs and all that other stuff. But we're getting into almost like game prep week. So a week from this Thursday, the Bengals play their first preseason game against the Philadelphia Eagles. So I'm sure the Bengals would like to really get a good idea of who they want and when they want them and the rotations you want to play up against Philadelphia. This is a big week. We'll throw the pads on for the first time over the course of the week, see some physicality. That's when you can start to evaluate the offensive and defensive lines a little bit to see where guys are at. But it should be an interesting week of camp. It's overall been kind of boring, a little bit more interesting now that Shemar Stewart is back, but boring is not a bad thing for the Cincinnati Bengals by any stretch of the imagination. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, training camp edition of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow anywhere you get your podcast. Follow me as well at Auty on everything. And we'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you so much for listening.